walls of Alexandria have fallen, a new threat reveals itself, and some character tension finally comes to a boiling point. That's right, I'm talking about Season 6, Episode 9, No Way Out. No Way Out is one of the most climactic episodes in the entire series, bringing the story of the first half of Season 6 to a close and introducing us to our new threat, the Saviors. This is one of the most action-packed and really just one of the coolest episodes in the entire series. It's a perfect way to wrap up this story arc, and it does so in some really amazing ways. In today's video, I'm going to be recapping No Way Out and then analyzing why it's so great and why it stands as one of, if not the greatest episode in the entire series. We start at the episode right where we left off. Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha are on the road back to Alexandria when they're stopped by what looks like a motorcycle gang who tells them to hand over their weapons because their property now belongs to Negan. The gang takes their weapons and then orders one of the men to go check out the back with Daryl. The leader continues talking to Abraham and Sasha, telling them that if you have to eat shit, it's best not to nibble on it. Daryl blows up the Saviors and they head back to Alexandria, Abraham saying, "Nibble on that," to the dead man. Back at Alexandria, walkers roam the one-time safe haven. Rick, Carl, Jesse, Sam, Ron, Michonne, and Father Gabriel walk through the crowd dressed in walker guts, trying to get somewhere safe. Rick forms a new plan to go back to the quarry and grab their vehicles to try and lure the walkers away, but Jesse worries about the trip for Judith. Father Gabriel volunteers to take Judith and keep her safe. Rick decides to trust him, and Gabriel takes Judith away. Tara and Rosita argue about going to try and save Denise, who was just taken by the wolf leader in the previous episode. Carol and Morgan are recovering from the fight they had over killing the wolf leader or not, so both of them missed out when he took Denise. Carol was the one who wanted to kill the wolf, but Morgan wanted to save him because this was back when all life is precious. Glenn and Enid run into the church looking for supplies. They talk about why it is they're fighting and how important it is. Glenn tells her that even though people are gone, they still stay with you, and that's why it's important to keep on fighting. Glenn wants Enid to stay in the church, where I feel like Father Gabriel should have arrived by now, but he's not, so whatever. Denise and the wolf hide from the walkers. Then, out of nowhere, we cut to Rick and company still walking through the crowd, and it's like pitch black outside. I know it never really goes over how big Alexandria is, but it's like midday when they started walking, and now it's just completely dark outside, but whatever. Sam gets scared around the walkers because of the story Carol threatened him with. They all try to motivate him to keep moving, but he is apparently making too much noise and gets bitten. Jessie starts screaming, and she starts getting bit, forcing Rick to go through this immediate heartbreak, but he has to get over it and keep moving. Jessie has a literal death grip on Carl's hand, so Rick has to cut off her arm with his hatchet. Ron takes this time to aim his gun at Rick, forcing Michonne to run a sword through him, but not before his aim got off-centered and he fired the gun. We look over and see that this shot actually grazed Carl's eye. He calls out to his dad and faints. And just like that, a company of 6 becomes 3 and Rick carries Carl while Michonne makes a path ahead for them. Denise and the wolf make a run for it, where the wolf, for some reason, decides to sacrifice himself to save Denise and he gets bit. Denise says that if they make it to the infirmary, she'll save his life. The wolf and Denise make a run for it once again, and Carol sees him and kills him. This is supposed to be a bittersweet moment because in the span of the past 2 minutes, apparently everything about this wolf changed and he became a better man, but in this case I think Carol was in the right. Denise makes it to the infirmary and Rick, carrying Carl, and Michonne arrive. Denise readies herself and prepares to save Carl. Rick is distraught in so many ways and needs a release, so he takes the hatchet and goes outside. He starts his killing spree, inspiring the others in the infirmary to follow and help. The other Alexandrians see this effort and are also inspired to join in, including Father Gabriel, who relinquishes the rights of Judith to random Alexandrian woman number 3, making a speech about how God has saved them because he's the one who gave them courage to save themselves. Carol, Morgan, Tara, Rosita, and Eugene also see Rick's effort and decide to go out and help. They start clearing out walkers when Morgan sees the zombified version of the wolf, forcing him to put an end to his life once and for all. Glenn sees that Maggie is being cornered on the outpost, so he causes a distraction. Maggie seeing that her husband actually is alive, though it looks like he may not be for much longer. He starts getting cornered by walkers once again, when a barrage of machine gun fire saves him, seeing Abraham and Sasha taking them out from above on the other side of the wall. Glenn and Daryl exchange words in the truck asking what the hell happened here, and neither of them actually know because neither of them were there. But Daryl says if they can round them all up, they can get rid of them easier. They back the truck up and release the gasoline into the lake. Daryl fires the RPG into the lake and sets it ablaze. The walkers head into the fire, but Rick tells them not to let up, so they continue their stand. Our group and all the Alexandrians alike finding the courage to stand up and fight for their home. In the morning, walker bodies cover the streets of Alexandria as the group sits down and rests. Injuries are tended to, and Rick sits by an injured Carl. He says that he was wrong about the Alexandrians, and they can learn to fight, and they are strong enough to survive. He tells Carl that he wants to show him the new world. He wants to make that new world for him. Carl closes his fingers on Rick's hand, and the episode ends. There's a lot of people who would say this is their favorite episode of all time, and that makes sense as this tops the chart for the highest rated episode of the series, along with No Sanctuary and Too Far Gone, both of which are videos I've covered, so if you haven't already, you should check those out. For a time, this would be my go-to episode for which was my favorite, but maybe because I've always said that for such a long time and built up its reputation in my head for so long, rewatching this episode, I wasn't as fond of it as I used to be. Don't get me wrong, this is a fantastic episode and one of the best in the series for sure, but it's not without its issues. We got our first concrete mention of Negan in this episode, to which Abraham responds in his stoic voice,
"Who's Negan?"
And even while being held at gunpoint, Abraham isn't afraid of whoever Negan is. And this is a bit of foreshadowing to when he actually meets Negan, where he is still as unafraid and unfazed as ever. Xavier also mentioned that they usually pop one of them right off the bat, which was obviously an intentional bit of foreshadowing as well. When it comes to Alexandria, and more specifically the Alexandrians in this episode, we obviously see a ton of progress and really how Rick has influenced them over time. We see a very physical manifestation of the impact that Rick has in this episode. He's the first one to start fighting the walkers, and because of his fight and his courage, it inspires the others to join. When Jessie sees her son get devoured, she screams and just accepts her death when it comes, not thinking twice about how she has another son to protect. When Rick sees Jessie get bit, he takes a moment to himself, but ultimately knows he has to move on and keep surviving. Even when his child is injured, Rick doesn't scream and just accept his fate, he takes action. This is actually an aspect of the episode I've grown to love more as time goes on. Jessie, Sam, and Ron all dying at the same time used to make me feel like it was just for shock purposes so that Rick and Michonne could get together in the next episode, but watching this episode this time around made me realize that Jessie, Sam, and Ron were the last remaining Alexandrians who were still weak. Without their deaths, Rick wouldn't have inspired everyone to fight, and they all might have not made it through the night. We also see characters like Father Gabriel and Eugene, who have been weak up until this point, start to prove their worth both to the group and to themselves. They don't want to live off the others' successes anymore, they want to start pulling their own weight, and this is the start of an arc for both of these characters that lasts well into season 11. It was cool to see Glenn give Enid the motivation to fight by talking about those he's lost, like Dale, Herschel, Tyrese, and Andrea, but I find it a bit strange he didn't mention Noah or Beth when those deaths are far more personal to him than Tyrese and Andrea were. One thing that I had forgotten about is that it's Michonne that kills Ron. I think this would have been cool to mention in season 9 when Michonne is forced to kill children who are too far gone in the world and said something like, "I've done this before, I can do it again," and see that killing this child actually took a toll on her. Now, I want to prepare you guys because this is going to be an unpopular opinion I'm about to share. When Rick is next to Carl's bed at the end of the episode, he says that he wants to show him the new world and how he wants to build that just for him. And right when Carl's hand grabs Rick's, it's like Rick forgot what he just said. Like he was just saying those things he didn't actually mean. After this episode, we see Rick fighting the Saviors and literally having no mercy against them, and this really went against what Rick was talking about in this scene. The only reason why Rick wants to build a new world is because of Carl's death. It took Carl actually dying in order for Rick to see things clearly and want to build a new world. Carl was on the brink of death here, but right when Rick knows he's okay, these thoughts of a new world leave his mind. So I know I just made a video about how Carl's death was wasted potential, but in rewatching this scene, I'm actually starting to think that Carl's death makes sense. Could there have been a way to show this and keep Carl alive? Absolutely, but as it stands, as it's written, I think it actually does make sense for the story. There were a lot of scenes in this episode with Denise and the wolf, and these are the scenes that really dragged the episode down for me. We see that this wolf leader is not a great dude even at the start of the episode, but then for some reason he risks his life for Denise, and because of that we're just supposed to forget the rest of the absolutely crazy things he did. When Carol shoots him, we're supposed to feel bad for this changed man. I don't think so, and I really don't think he was changed. Had he survived through the night, it's not like he was gonna join Rick's group. Rick would have taken one look at him knowing that his people killed Alexandrians and shot him on the spot. None of this B-plot landed well for me. I can see how some people would like it and how it could make sense to them, but it really just didn't do anything for me, and it actually made the episode worse. No Way Out, while I think it has some story and even some technical issues, is still one of the greatest episodes of The Walking Dead. There's some big moments, like Carl getting his eye shot, and Daryl with the RPG, and the Alexandrians taking back their home, that are among some of the most iconic in all of The Walking Dead. It has so many cool scenes and moments, and wrapped up every storyline in 6A in a mostly satisfying manner. There's definitely more to love here than there is to hate, and for all those reasons, No Way Out stands out as the highest rated episode of the series and one of my personal favorites. Let me know your thoughts on No Way Out in the comments below and which episode I should cover next. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. If you do, then I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.